Hey ladies, welcome to what I'm calling Announcement Thursday. Today I'm going to give you a bunch of information on where women's ministry is going for 2022. Lots of excitement here, so it's going to be quick and I'm going to try to make it as concise as possible. So you want to listen. All the information is also included in print in this blog post, but you might want to grab a pencil and paper and just write down, this is, whatever we come across and you're like, this is what I want to do. So one, what are we talking about? Well, first, we're going to talk about discipleship groups. We call these Thrive groups, at least on the women's side. The men are starting theirs, and so Nathan Halcomb is your go-to guy for that. But for the women, we're kicking off registration today. You can fill out the form and send it in based on what I'm getting ready to explain. Thrive groups are meant to be life-giving, for you to thrive in the Lord and in your relationship with Him. So we cover theology, doctrine, biblical knowledge, and equipping people to better study the Word. That's what we want to do. Our first year of this is just called Thrive. And we come at this saying, we don't make any assumptions on what people have been taught or their background or where they're at currently. So we just start everywhere and everyone at the same place. And this is our little curriculum for the year. We begin with Christian beliefs. This just covers 20 basic beliefs that every Christian should know. It's based off of Wayne Grudem's systematic theology book, and his son edited that for just a real concise version. The second book that we do is None Like Him. And this is 10 ways God is different from us. So we talk about God's attributes in the way that He is, but we are not. It's a really wonderful book for us to grow, to understand God more, and then preach those aspects of the gospel based on God's character to ourselves every day. From there, we talk about the gospel for real life, Jerry Bridges. And so being a gospel community, we want to talk about how to live through that better. The last book that we do is Women of the Word, and this helps us really look at how we're approaching Scripture, how we're studying it, are we studying it, and break that down to develop better methods and study habits. Super exciting. And if you look at these and go, 4 books, there's no chance I can do that. I haven't even read a book this year. It's been however long. I've started a bunch of books, but I don't actually finish them. That's okay, because I've never had people to really, unless they just kind of give up or whatever, I've never had people to just drop out because there's just too much reading. The fact is, we stick with it. It's amazing what you can do when you're together and you're motivated and there's accountability, and it's not too much. We usually do a chapter, maybe 2 a week. If a chapter is 4 or 5 pages, it's really not that much. It's 100% doable. And so my current Thrive group is graduating. We're going to have a church-wide graduation on December 21st. So save that date, and you can hear from people there about what these Thrive groups are. Go ahead and ask people in your community group, hey, have you been in a Thrive group? Tell me about it, because they're just absolutely wonderful for growing in the Lord and doing that with other ladies. Our second Thrive group, second year, is called Thriving. And that's exactly what we want to do. We want you to be thriving in the Lord. And so for those who have graduated from a Thrive group, whether it be this year or 2 or 3 years ago, you are welcome to join a Thriving group. So what are we going to do in a Thriving group? Great question. So this group takes what we learned foundationally through Thrive to a whole other level. We are going to begin with a book on, again, how are we approaching the Word and how are we understanding the Bible as a whole? Nancy Guthrie's Even Better Than Eden, 9 ways the Bible's story changes everything about your story. And so, wonderful book. We go from there into R.C. Sproul's The Holiness of God. So what do we know about God's holiness? What do we think about on a daily basis of God and who He is? That'll take us deeper. It's a wonderful book. I have learned so much from R.C. Sproul over the years in just his teaching doctrinally and theologically. And so love getting into this book with people. A new one to the curriculum this time around is Dane Ortland's Gentle and Lowly. And this is the heart of Christ for sinners and sufferers. If you know anything about this book, or if you have read it already, or parts of it perhaps, then you know how just heartwarming and encouraging this book is for believers. So I'm really excited to get into that with ladies. And keep in mind, if you have read some of these books, don't say, oh, I've read that, can't do the group. Most people don't remember everything they read. And when we go back and do these again, people just get so much more. It's still, it might make it a little easier in terms of, you don't have to read it for the first time. It might make digesting it easier, but it does not disqualify you from being in that group. Fourth book that we're going to do in Thriving is Jen Wilkins, In His Image. Now, similarly to the None Like Him, this is 10 ways God calls us to reflect His character. So these are the things that, in the ways that we can be like God, and that we should be. We should, as image bearers, reflect His character. Lastly, we are going to do a book new to this round by Tim Chester called Enjoying God. And it is experiencing the power and love of God in everyday life. So similar to Bridges, the Gospel for Real Life, this is going to take all of God's character, all that we know about Him, and through Father, Son, and Spirit, and our understanding of that going deeper. And so super excited about doing Thriving groups this year. There's also Thrive 3 if you have already graduated from a Thriving group. And what that would be like is teaming up with another person or two who had graduated and doing deeper study of Scripture together. So those are more like self-led groups with a little bit of help and support through a study of Scripture together. So what that might look like is if you're doing the Bible study this year, it might mean that that's the subject of what you gather and discuss. It might be that you say, hey, Lorianne, we want to read this book together. And so I help you develop a curriculum. That group might only meet for 6 months rather than 9 months. But it's a little more flexibility, but we want to take it deeper than what might be accountability partners, but not as deep and formal as here's a curriculum for you to work through, but we're open to all suggestions on that. Lastly, I want to talk about Bible study because it's so exciting. I'm so excited. I have been in communication with Nathan Halcomb about this, and since the men are starting theirs and the women and everything's kind of going forward in 2022, one of the big excitements that we want to talk about is that when we open Bible study in January, the men and women are going to be studying the same thing. So if you want to go, woohoo, yes, we are going to study the book of Hebrews. Now, if you are currently in our study of the God to whom I belong, then you know this is going to be very exciting because we are going to take all that we're learning about the God to whom we belong and look at what Peter, at least it's who we think is the author of Hebrews, says about Christ being the fulfillment of all the Old Testament prophecies, how He is the Son of the God to whom we belong. And it's so exciting, and I'm really thrilled. But even better is that women and their husbands can talk about this together. So whole family kind of studies. So wait for that to come about. Registration will open, and it will be a 17-week study of 13 chapters. We'll have some Old Testament brought in and look deeply at some things, but you can look at having those conversations in your home, clearly if you're married, but if not, then you're going to be studying with your church. And so we want to open that up to everyone, and I'm sure that the men will be talking about that some more, but save the date on all that. Make sure you want to get involved, and women, we will still be meeting midweek and on Sunday mornings. We will have separate gatherings, but we will be studying the same content, different teachers. So we'll still have women, and the men will still have their groups. However that's going to look, I have no idea. But I do know how we are going to look, and we're going to charge on as we have been. And so anyway, you will find registration for Thrive groups in this post. You will find the list of the books and their authors. And I would love for you to get that form to me, and then feel free to ask any questions that you want. Feel free to talk with someone in your community group that has been a part of it. We have, I think, 3 to 4 leaders coming in, and I hope to transition out of a leader and to be primarily training people for future groups, as well as helping those leaders in the current groups. That may not be, we'll have to see how many people sign up for these groups, but do that. Typically, groups will meet based on proximity, based on availability. So we might be within community groups, but we may not. So it just depends on when someone says, oh, here's the best time for me to meet. So per that, I hope you have a great day. I hope you're looking forward to things, and let's get excited about 2022. Lord willing, we're going to have a great year of learning and growing in Him.